Hey YouTube, it's Tech Bro Joe. We're going to be reviewing the Logitech MX Vertical today. It is a vertical mouse. The point of that being you want a neutral position, kind of like a handshake position for using mice. It is better ergonomically for you. Most normal mice will have you pronate, so your wrists will look like this. The Logitech MX Vertical we're going to be reviewing is 57 degrees, so it's about this. That's why my hand is kind of clawing. And then I don't believe any mouse exists where you're supinating. I'm guessing you are having some wrist pain or maybe some shoulder pain, something, and you're curious about going into vertical mice. So I'm going to go over the pros and cons in this video and whether I recommend it or not. I have been using it for the last 8 months. I actually bought two and have been using them since August, one for personal use, one for work use. So I've used it a lot. And then some other background, I've used Kensington trackballs, and that didn't really solve any wrist pain that I had because I was still pronating. It felt cool though. It felt like Lord of the Rings with Saruman with like the Palantir, like the little orb see stuff. So I like the trackball in that sense because it felt goofy, but it didn't really help ergonomically for me. And then I've also tried the Anchor vertical mouse, and I didn't like it. It's a little more intense of an angle, and it just felt really weird, and I couldn't get used to it, and I ended up donating it. So I have tried some other kind of oddball mice just as a history. So let's get into it. The first thing I like about this mouse is the way that it feels. It has this rubbery texture that Logitech will put on a lot of their mice. The MX Master over there has something very similar, where all this is rubberized. However, this top silver part, these two buttons, and the left and right mouse click buttons are plastic. The scroll wheel is a little rubberized as well, and so that feels good, and it doesn't get dirty very quickly. It's also easy to clean. The other pro is it fits my hand, which that varies depending on, the size of your hand. I wear large gloves and this fits pretty well. It does have a 57-degree angle, which I think is a good hybrid between a 90-degree totally vertical mouse, which those are sold, versus just a standard mouse, kind of like the MX Master. So the reason why that's a pro, because you might be thinking, what the heck does that mean, 57 degrees? The reason why is because it's kind of in between a fully vertical mouse and a standard mouse. So the ramp up or learning curve is only a few days, and then you'll be back in business doing office work or just general computer browsing or whatever it is that you're doing on your computer. The other, I don't know if this is really a pro, but it's more of a feature, is you can use the Logitech software to flip through 3 different computers that you've connected to. That's pretty standard on a lot of Logitech's product line. So it is nice if you only buy one and have multiple PCs that you switch through during the day. I'm not really sure if it's a pro, but you can customize these 2 buttons, this top button and the scroll wheel press button. I have tried kind of using these for the sake of the review, but for the most part, I just don't really use customized buttons. But it is nice if you're into that. The last pro, or I would say this is more of a pro than a feature, is the battery life is great. It lasts a really long time. I've only had to charge it maybe once every month, and half the time it's at like 40% or higher. I don't think I've ever seen it get to 20% or lower just because I charge it before it dies. And so that is really nice that it's USB powered battery and it just lasts a while. All right, now the cons. This mouse, sadly, will not be my main driver after trying to make it my main driver for about 8 months because it causes me index and middle finger pain, which I'm guessing is like radial nerve pain. And I'm not sure if it's my armrests or the way I sit or posture with this mouse specifically, but I switched to the MX Master 3 and the Microsoft Sculpt. This one's personal and this one's for work. And I've noticed it relieves that finger pain for me. So I'm not really sure why, because it feels good, but my suspicion is these click buttons and mouse scroll wheel are just hard to actuate. Like when I click, it takes way more pressure. And when I press this in, it takes more pressure. And when I even scroll wheel, there's no like, what's it called? Infinite scroll. It has notches. And it ends up hurting my fingers, sadly. And I was suspicious that it wasn't the mouse and it was the way I was typing, especially now that I have this. And it was actually a mix. I didn't type the best while I was using shift and like kind of stretching my fingers. And now that I've relearned how to type, as soon as I stopped using this mouse and switched to the MX Master 3 or Sculpt, it just relieved a lot of that pain almost instantly, like after 30 minutes of using it. So just be aware that if that happens to you, this mouse is not for you. So make sure you buy it from somewhere with a good return policy, because you should be feeling that probably after, 2 to 3 weeks of using it every day. The next con is I think it's way too expensive. When I was looking up other people's reviews for this mouse, I didn't realize it's 5 years old and they should really do a refresh, because $80 to $100 for this old of a mouse, I think it's too much money. Another con is the weight. And so this might just be a me problem, but if you've ever had like a Glorious Model O or some of those, honeycomb, really lightweight gaming mice, those sit around like 60 to 70 grams of weight. This is 135 grams. So if you don't up your mouse sensitivity, it can add up really quick. It'll just feel heavy. Like if you have low mouse sensitivity and have to do this a bunch, it it will not feel very good. So I bumped it up to 70% and it made it more bearable, but that is very, I mean, it some people don't like that is what I'm trying to say. So it's definitely up to you. Maybe that's not a con for you. The other part that's a con is if you try and play Call of Duty or Valorant or CSGO or League of Legends or anything competitive, you're going to have a bad time. You can play those games with this, but it's so much harder to be accurate because there's no DPI settings. There's just percentage mouse pointer speed, that it just makes it incredibly difficult to be competitive. You can play turn-based games like Civilization or Baldur's Gate 3 or Slay the Spire just fine. It'll feel great, but it is not for competitive gaming at all. And then the last big con is the thumb buttons are not placed in a comfortable position. These two thumb buttons feel so weird to use. They typically are like back and forward in browsing, and you can customize them to whatever. Like I tried page up, page down to see if that would help reduce my pain using the scroll wheel, and it's so awkward for me. Like I don't know, I just don't see how this is ergonomic, because it feels unnatural to have to lift your thumb that high. And then this one's supposed to change your pointer speed or mouse percentage speed. And I guess it's fine if that's all you're doing because you won't use it that much, but for programming it doesn't really work. And this not so much is a con, but this is something I want to bring to your attention if you're seriously thinking about buying this mouse, is vertical mice will not solve bad habits in ergonomics. And what I mean by that is you can see I'm trying to keep my hand and wrist relatively straight. When you use this for long periods of time, depending on how you sit, you might be doing a lot of wrist flexion, which is this, which isn't good for your hand. Maybe you're sitting a certain way and you end up doing that. Obviously, this is over exaggerated, but I mean, if this is, let's say, neutral, and you're doing this, which is a little more slight, it will potentially cause you pain. And it goes the same way with wrist extension, which again, I'm over exaggerating to illustrate it. But so if you're holding the mouse like this, or probably more realistic version would be maybe this, it can cause pain over long periods of time. So just be aware, you will have to get used to it and be aware, self-aware of how are you using this mouse and are you using it in an ergonomic way. After the pros and cons, the question now becomes, do I recommend the Logitech MX Vertical? And sort of, it's yes and no. There's things that I really like about it, like the way that it feels in hand and just kind of the grip and angle and everything. However, I have stopped using these two mice as of this review because of the dull pain in my index and middle finger. What originally caused me to try this mouse and kind of look for vertical mice was I was feeling some pain here and in the thumb. And it was worse than the dull pain that I'm feeling in these two fingers. So overall, it was a better experience. However, I'm trying to look for a pain-free experience, if that makes sense. And if you, the viewer, are still watching this, thank you. If this was valuable content to you in your ergonomic journey, or even just deciding if you want to buy this or not, please like and subscribe. It helps motivate me to make more videos, as well as it's a way of supporting the channel. However, the other thing I want to ask the viewer is, if you have a mouse that is just amazing, that solved whatever pain you were feeling, or that just is phenomenal, please recommend it and let me know in the comments. I want to make a video where I probably will buy 3 to 5 mice and use each one for a month and then compare them with the results. I'm just not sure where to start because there's a lot of mice. And I mean, I didn't bring out a bunch, but I feel like most people have tried lots of different mouses and some of them really suck. So if you have a suggestion, I will take it seriously. I do read all the comments on my YouTube videos. So just let me know. I'd love to make that video and I'd appreciate your help. And I wish I had a more definitive answer, but if you're having some wrist pain, it is worth trying this mouse if it's in your budget, because again, it is pretty expensive. I think $80 to $100 for a mouse is expensive for basically anyone. Anyways, if you made it all the way then, thanks a bunch again. It's Tech Bro Joe. Sick. Have a good day.